Welcome back to New Day Cleveland. When it comes to wine, there are almost as many myths as there are facts floating around. Can you believe that? Well, here to set the record straight is the owner of Grapes in a Glass, Tamara Jorgensen. Her store is in Canton, your restaurant there. It's so beautiful. I love it.
Thanks.
And right downtown, you have to go check them out. But you are quite the expert, and I feel like even when we go into possibly just spirit stores, we're getting some misinformation at times.
Yes, you actually are, quite often.
So you're going to dispel some myths for us today.
Yeah, just a few myths.
So what's the first one?
Well, one of the things is screw tops. It's actually called Stilven, a screw top versus a corked bottle. Everybody says, oh, if you buy a screw top bottle, it's cheap. That's a cheap wine. Not necessarily true. Screw top bottles have been out since the 1950s. They actually keep your wine fresher for longer. Most wines are made to be drank within the first 5 years anyway. So to use a screw top bottle on the majority of wines makes a heck of a lot more sense. There is 3 to 5% cork failure rate in a cork. They're made with different porousness, different materials, so there's different leakage. So a high-end bottle, if you have a $100 bottle of wine and you're losing 5% of your product to a failed cork, that's huge. So a lot of them are going to the screw top bottles. Plus, it's a lot easier to open if you're in a hurry to drink.
Open. I have always, and I hate saying this, but like you would always just associate with maybe like again, not as expensive, not as nice of a bottle of wine. But that is by far not the case.
Yes, it is not.
Now,
the
did
case.
you bring the corks just to show?
Yeah, just so people could see. There are different types of corks. There's, you know, a real cork versus a synthetic cork. There's not a lot of difference between cork failure in those. At least research-wise. Synthetic corks are obviously not biodegradable. They're made with fossil fuels, so people steer clear of those. A real cork is made from it's a type of an oak tree grown in northern Africa, Spain, and Portugal. It takes 40 years for a single cork to be produced. So a real cork is a really cool entity, but it can be multiple levels of porousness, so different amounts of oxygen can get through.
Okay. What about the next one?
The next one is sulfite allergies. Everyone comes in, I need a sulfite-free wine. Well, first off, there's not really anything, such thing as a sulfite allergy. There are sulfite sensitivities. People with asthma especially can exacerbate their asthma. So they have to be careful with sulfites. All wine has sulfites. You can't avoid it. As does cauliflower, sauerkraut, apricots. I mean, everything has sulfites.
Things that are good for you, technically.
So my question is, can you drink orange juice? This bottle of orange juice has more sulfites in it than a glass of wine. So they say, well, I drink orange juice and don't have a problem. It probably is either the quantity of wine you're drinking.
Maybe just have a glass of wine
or the alcohol. But most likely it's histamines. That's the most current research medically. Histamines. Take a Benadryl before you drink a glass of wine. You probably won't have that reaction of headache and flushing. You may fall asleep in your wine.
I know. I was just going to say, you probably have to take a nap after that combo, but it's worth it if you want to enjoy a good glass of wine. Okay, what's next?
Next is aeration of a wine. This is a common aerator. This is a decanter. Do you need to aerate, open up your wine? People always talk about that in the stores. Probably not. If you're buying a very new California or French wine, maybe in the $50 to $100 range, current vintage year within a few years, it's probably going to be good to pour it into a decanter to allow some oxygen to get to it. If you're drinking a white wine or just a Pinot Noir or something that's made to be drank currently, or it's just a $10 bottle of wine, you really don't need to do this aeration stuff. All it does is soften tannins that naturally occur when a bottle ages. So it's really just for very young wines. Aeration, kind of a myth.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What about over here?
Legs of the wine. This is the one thing I love. Everybody talks about legs.
I remember at a young age hearing people say the longer it takes the legs to get down, the better of wine it is. And I don't know how. I was pretty young when I was taught that for some reason.
And
that's
you
the
still
Italian
hear
in
it.
me.
I go into wine stores, I still hear it.
So what's the deal?
It's really a myth. Legs, however, if it's a sweet wine, which this is a dessert wine, so it has high sugar, or a high alcohol wine will have more of these legs. So when you put it in your glass and you swirl it, you're going to see how slowly they drip down the sides of your glass. In most cases, it's just going to say more alcohol, more sugar. More realistically, most bars, most restaurants are using glassware. We use crystal, big difference. Crystal is polished. You don't have any issues of surface tension or soap. If you have scratches and soap residue on your glasses, it's going to totally throw off the legs. It doesn't mean a thing.
Interesting.
So more
Now,
common.
I want to quickly ask you before we go to break, because we've been asking this, how long can a bottle of wine last? So once you open it, we've been asking, how long can it last without it going sour or not tasting so good?
2 to 3 days tops. You can gas it with argon, put it in your refrigerator. You might get 5
Does
days
it help
out.
to actually pump it out and pull
It does help, maybe
Okay.
1 day extra.
That's
but
it.
most wines, you've only got a couple days.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot today. Thank you so
Yes.
much for being here. Go
Thank
check
you.
them out in Can Grapes in a Glass.
Yep.
All
Thank
right.
you.